Okay, try not to laugh while I explain to you my childhood obsession. In the 4th grade, my best friend at the time showed me a video game that would take over my life for the next 4 years.
We'll save Wizard City.
This may be the one.
They'll have to be brave.
They'll face horrible creatures. They must learn many spells and summon the mightiest of creatures if they are to defeat the greatest threat of all. Sign up for your free trial today. Rated everyone 10 and up.
Look at my mouth. It's exactly how I feel.
Yep, Wizard 101. I spent hours glued to my family computer, leveling up, getting new spells, and now I boast a modest level 161 balance wizard. I was recently reminded of just how important Wizard 101 was to my development while watching A24's most recent movie, I Saw the TV Glow. I didn't realize at the time, but the game was a crucial catalyst into my development as a queer person. What Wizard 101 provided me could only really be summed up as queer escapism. And this idea has been prevalent in all aspects of my life, but most importantly, in the media I consume. And if you're queer like me, maybe you feel similarly. I think it's relatively common for queer people to be obsessed with sci-fi and fantasy. And I think Rachel Kincaid said it best in her article, What Draws Queer People to High Fantasy? Queer and trans people find something that calls them to the genre. It has a hallmark, some kind of possibility for hope of defeating evil against all odds, whether that's magic, divine powers, or a fantastical community. And queer escapism is a lifeline for repressed queer youth. It's evident the rights and safety of trans and queer individuals is still in jeopardy around the world. And delving into fantastical storylines of mythical powers and vanquishing evil is a coping mechanism many members of the community use. Not to mention, escapism is evident in our physical lives too. People have even made professions around acting like someone else and escaping who they are personally, like in drag. On a more individualized level, escapism is pivotal as a means of survival against the perforative, first-hand homophobia and transphobia that runs rampant within communities and families globally. Queer escapism can take many forms for each individual, but often the subject matter is considered immature or unaligned with the individual's societal gender expectations. In Jane Shobrin's latest film, I Saw the TV Glow, she plays with this idea of queer escapism, as her two main characters have this fascination with a fictitious 90s horror young adults program, the Pink Opaque. At a young age, our protagonist Owen becomes intrigued with the mystic persona of Maddie, our film's second protagonist. Maddie introduces Owen to the Pink Opaque, and even convinces Owen to rebel against their parents and sneak out to Maddie's house to watch the show. Maddie also leaves Owen tapes of the show so Owen can catch up. And the Pink Opaque, in all honesty, is a bad show.
Why does the winter have to be so cold that you can't eat ice cream during the winter?
It's filled with that 90s cheesy young adults acting that's becoming of its references. Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Are You Afraid of the Dark, and Goosebumps. The show chronicles two queer-coded psychic heroines as they fight against the evil forces of their world. Mr. Melancholy, aka the Big Bad.
His henchmen are close by.
And despite the show's cheesy nature, when Owen and Maddie watch, it's an out-of-body experience. So much so that at one late-night viewing session, Maddie even begins to cry while Tara, one of the show's protagonists, slaughters a dancing clown.
Hey, Bozo! Estee Lauder called. They got a few suggestions about this whole look you're going for.
Now, at face value, this is pretty confusing, but when we find out that Maddie and Owen are actually reincarnations of Tara and Isabel, the show's protagonists, and that the world they're living in is actually the Midnight Realm, the place that Mr. Melancholy sent Tara and Isabel when he defeated them, Maddie's crying becomes more clearly motivated.
You're gonna love the Midnight Realm. It's such a wonderful prison.
And while at this point in the film she doesn't know it yet, Maddie is crying for the life that she had as Tara in a world where she was living as who she truly is. And while this very meta view of that scene isn't very relatable to the average viewer, the idea of wishing that you were part of the world you were watching on screen or reading in a book is queer escapism. As a kid, I loved the show Wizards of Waverly Place. And while it's debatable whether it was good or not, I would often find myself crying at the show, so desperately wishing that the spells, potions, and portals were real, knowing that they never would be. In an interview for Film Comment, Jane Schoenbrunn perfectly illustrates this sort of isolation. In childhood, we look for hints of who we are in the world around us. But as you grow up and respond to all the coded ways in which the world tells you who you have to be, and certainly as a trans person who hasn't accepted that they need to transition, those same images can become a coping mechanism. At a certain point, Owen isn't so much living in those shows as he is returning to them, because it's a safe way to ingest or mainline an identity. In my own experience, that process, like any kind of addictive process, is going to eventually leave you a little bit empty. You chase something that feels increasingly further away. The relationships between characters and screens in the film is quite complex, but the arc goes from something that's offering a hint of liberation to one that's maybe more of a prison. And I think that's what makes Owen and Maddie's relationship to the show so poignant. It doesn't matter the quality, it matters how the show encapsulates a feeling that they're missing, the freedom to live authentically. But I Saw the TV Glow doesn't stop there with its references to queer escapism. After making it back into the Pink Opaque, Maddie returns to the real world to save Owen. Prior to telling Owen about her journey back, she takes him to a bar at the edge of town. The bar space can be considered queer escapism, as bars have been foundational safe spaces for the community for decades. The band at the bar plays Claw Machine, featuring Phoebe Bridgers, by Sloppy Jane. It's a quintessentially indie rock song. As a genre, indie rock has been used to meld queerness into the popular music space. After Maddie tells Owen that all the time she's been gone, she's been inside the Pink Opaque,
Been there, inside the show.
the music transitions into Psychic Wound by King Woman. It's an intense heavy metal anthem, and metal is a genre meant to defy the norms of popular music. Maddie and Owen even meet at the planetarium back at their old high school. While Maddie tells Owen about their destiny and their mission ahead, constellations are projected all around them, covering their faces, going through them. Representative astronomy and astrology as a means of queer escapism. Even the title of the film and the marketing give an almost trance-like consumption of the TV, as if the glow is consuming. And in that same Film Comment interview, Jane goes on to talk about queer fixation. When I think back to the invisible or subtle flickers of beauty that I caught in the media while growing up, and which I clung to in the way that Owen clings to things in the film, it was never as direct as, oh look, there's transness. Whether it was a fixation with goth iconography or a style of music, it was clearly me trying to express an identity that could commune with something more gentle, that could never be thought of as masculine. The media that made an impact on me as a kid who wasn't ready to accept my gender identity was stuff that I felt like I could cosplay through, much in the way that Owen and Maddie are cosplaying through the characters of the Pink Opaque. For me, it was never about finding representations of transness as much as it was about finding my personal relationship with beauty and things that I felt were beautiful and communing with them. This has been a guiding force in my work since long before I even realized I was trans. I call it mutation. This desire to mutate the images and iconography that I've been fed all my life, and as you said, transition them into a form that is almost like the glow in my film, equal parts beautiful and grotesque. There's a lot to be said about how that desire relates to a trans gaze, especially the dissociative egg gaze of growing up in a haze where you're looking to images to show you something that feels like real life, and those images give you both beauty and romance, but in a way that's kind of sinister. Now, if you watch the movie, you know that Owen never truly does escape. He's doomed to this life of monotony because of another motif that I want to discuss. Indecision. Specifically, the suffocating stagnation of fear-based indecision. Owen, as a character, is reserved, nervous, and asthmatic.
You remember Join Haler, right?
Owen lives a life afraid of everything. Their father.
Are you asking for me?
Their coworkers.
Hey, why don't you look at me?
Voting.
It's time to vote for the sex of Opaque.
Even themselves.
Maybe you're like Isabel, afraid of what's inside you.
Ironically, they don't fear the show literally designed to scare you. They actively avoid any scenario that could have a volatile or severe impact on their life, except each time they sneak out to go watch the Pink Opaque. Owen is afraid of confronting themselves and who they truly are, and so they stop at nothing to avoid having to do that. Multiple times throughout I Saw the TV Glow, Owen is presented with a choice: to live their life as they have been, or to take a chance on living their life authentically. We see it first when Maddie asks Owen to run away with her.
I'm getting out of this town.
Owen is given the option to run away with Maddie and live out an uncertain future, or they can stay at home with the much more reliable yet suffocating reality of their father's oppressive judgment. Unfortunately, Owen chooses the latter.
You can't let me go with her. I don't want to leave my home.
And this isn't the last time. When Maddie came back to save them, she gives Owen the option of burying themselves in the ground to return to the Pink Opaque as Isabel. And at the fight or flight moment, Owen tackles her to the ground and runs away. And finally, in the last moments of the film, Owen is presented with their own choice. After having a very public meltdown in front of a birthday party full of children and parents,
I'm dying right now!
Owen cuts themselves open in the bathroom, ripping open their chest to reveal TV static, as if to tell us and Owen that Maddie was telling the truth the whole time. Even confronted with that knowledge, Owen still chooses to live their life exactly how it was, as we see them apologize to the random customers for the outburst.
Sorry about that before. Sorry about before. Just a new meditation alone.
And it's such a shame because that ending really feels like it's going to be their turning point, where Owen will finally take the leap of faith and free themselves, which makes the realization of their inhibitions so profound. And as much as it is haunting to never see Owen fully seize their destiny, it's not entirely Owen's fault. Repression from the world and scenarios that Owen lives in has caused Owen to lack any confidence. And as a phenomenon, queer repression is not adequately represented in media. But I Saw the TV Glow really flips the script. It becomes clear in the film that Owen's father is an amalgamation of all of that repression. When Owen's a teenager, one night in the car, they ask their parents if they can stay up late to watch the Pink Opaque that night. And their father responds,
"Isn't that a show for girls?"
At this point, while sitting through my first watch, I was startled into the reality of the context of the film. It is one of the clearest ways the film shows us exactly what it's about. And I think that's why a lot of the subtext goes unnoticed by those who are not a part of the community. Any queer person knows the sting of judgment those words entail. A shocking reminder of how the world imposes its values on you. Owen's father is even seen scalding Owen in the shower after finding Owen with their head in the TV. Which is symbolism of Owen's attempt to reconnect with his true self. Owen even cries out while getting waterboarded. Which is true in a plot sense because Owen is Isabel, but it's also allegory for the idea of displacement and emancipation from a violent parent. The idea of "it gets better" was a common idiom used when I was younger. It was meant to inspire younger generations to live out and proud as who they are because inevitably their lives will turn out better for it. Regardless of that sentiment, the fact remains, life happens later for queer people. As a community, we are constantly steps behind our peers. I remember knowing that I would never have the experience of dating, let alone marrying, my high school sweetheart, and now I look around and I see friends and former classmates getting married, all cisgendered and heteronormative, and some even having kids, and that still doesn't feel like a possibility for me. And there's even some resentment for them to some degree, which is why it is so heartbreaking to see Owen continually deny their chance to escape. Personally, I felt very uncomfortable during this movie. It was as if Jane Schoenbrunn had held up a mirror and made me look at the person that I am today. Forced me to see how indecision and repression and never taking a leap of faith has suppressed my life. And that is why this film has had such a tremendous impact on queer and closeted people. To some, it's a warning sign. It says, take that chance, and there is still time. Time to crack the egg and shed the shell to reveal the person inside of you. An intense and rousing reminder to those still in the midnight realm that it's never too late to seize your destiny. If you like this video, consider liking it, leaving a comment, and subscribing to my channel. Also, consider following me on Instagram and TikTok. I have a podcast that comes out every 2 weeks. And let me know, what are your thoughts on I Saw the TV Glow? What's your Pink Opaque? Leave it down in the comments. And until next time.